My mother died when I was 16. After that, it was just my father and me. He worked hard. He kept his promises. He taught me to be patient, disciplined, and smart. We weren't perfect, but we had each other. Then Margaret came. She wanted everyone to call her Maggie. She smiled too much. She acted perfect. She had charm, grace, and words that sounded sincere. At first, I wanted my father to be happy. I tried to accept her. I told myself she could be harmless. I was wrong. Maggie did not try to belong. She tried to erase me. My mother's photo disappeared from the living room. My mother's journals vanished. Even a sweater my mother had knitted for me was gone. When I asked, she smiled. Sweet. Innocent. But the satisfaction in her eyes was real. She was taking over. She was removing me. She spoke to my father quietly. She clings to the past, she said. She holds you back. You can't see the future with her constantly reminding you of what you lost. My father listened. He stopped asking my side. When I tried to speak, my words were twisted. If I protested, I was stubborn. If I stayed quiet, I was ungrateful. Her moves were small but constant. My allowance stopped. College forms I had prepared disappeared. Maggie locked the study and said I didn't need my mother's things anymore. People began to doubt me. My father doubted me. She planted seeds everywhere, quietly, without mistakes. I realized then that she was methodical. She wasn't impulsive. She planned everything. One night, I overheard her speaking on the phone. She's nearly an adult, she said. She's a burden. Send her away. Let her learn to live on her own. Start fresh with me. My father didn't answer. His silence said everything. He was considering it. I felt anger, yes. But I felt more than anger. I felt clarity. I stopped begging. I stopped crying. I stopped showing weakness. I began to watch. I began to listen. I began to plan. I started recording everything. Every lie. Every manipulation. Every missing item. Every time she turned my father against me. I wrote down dates, times, words. I memorized patterns. She moved when he was tired, when he was distracted, when no one else noticed. She hid papers in the study safe. She took long trips and returned with changes in the house. Everything she did followed a plan. Her plan became clear. Maggie had married my father for control, for wealth, for power. She wanted the house, the land, the money. I was in her way. She wanted to remove me. I did not fight her openly. That would be foolish. I had learned the first rule, never show weakness. I observed silently. I remembered every detail. Her arrogance was my advantage. Her confidence made her careless. She thought I had no power. She underestimated me. I began to anticipate her moves. I noticed how she would pressure my father to sign papers after long days. I noticed which neighbors she spoke to, which friends she sought approval from. Everything had a pattern. I recorded each one in my notebook. I even started making copies of documents, hidden in places she would never find. At school, I stayed quiet. I didn't talk about Maggie. I didn't cry. I didn't look angry. I kept my face calm. Inside, I was learning. Planning. Waiting. Every insult, every small victory of hers, fueled my patience. She thought she was winning. She thought she had already removed me from my father's life. She was wrong. I was still his child. I still knew his habits, his fears, his secrets. I still had the advantage of memory and loyalty that she could never buy. Her next move was financial. She convinced my father to stop giving me my allowance directly. She said it was to teach responsibility. Instead, she redirected it. I had to find ways to access what was rightfully mine without alerting her. I began studying his financial habits. I learned which accounts she could not touch, which papers she could not access. I learned everything I could. Her words to others were always honeyed. To friends and relatives, she was perfect. To my father, she was nurturing. To me, she was poison. She controlled the narrative, and everyone believed her. But her control was fragile. She had no proof of loyalty, no evidence of honesty. I had everything she didn't know I had: observation, memory, and patience. I started noticing her weaknesses. She became nervous when confronted with simple questions. She repeated certain phrases to cover her lies. She over-explained, trying to justify her actions. Every overstep was a crack I could use. Every moment of arrogance built the ladder I would climb. At night, I planned. Not with anger, but with precision. I imagined what would happen if her moves failed. I imagined every scenario. I thought about the day I would confront her, and how I would do it without a single mistake. I visualized every detail, every word. I was no longer a child. I was learning strategy. I was learning patience. I was learning to turn silence into power. Maggie thought she had erased me, but all she had done was push me to grow faster, to think sharper, to wait for the right moment. And I would wait. I had no choice. Every mistake she made, every small arrogance, added to my plan. I would not rush. I would not fight openly. I would watch, record, and learn. She thought I was weak. She thought I was helpless. She believed she had already won. But I was ready. I did not know the exact moment yet. I did not know how or when it would happen. But I knew one thing: she had underestimated me. She had no idea that every lie, every manipulation, every stolen moment had been recorded. Every unfair action would one day return to her, stronger than she could imagine. Maggie had built her empire in my father's house. She had claimed his attention. She had claimed the trust of others. But she had not claimed me. Maggie's moves grew bolder. She controlled the house, the finances, and my father's attention. Every morning, she found a new way to undermine me. A misplaced document. A whispered complaint to my father. A sudden need for me to follow her rules. Each act was designed to make me doubt myself, to isolate me. I did not react. I stayed quiet. I let her believe her power was complete. But behind that calm, I was preparing. I began keeping copies of every document she touched. I memorized the timing of her trips, her calls, even the way she phrased lies. I studied her patterns like a student studies a textbook. Her arrogance became my tool. She believed my silence meant defeat. It meant the opposite. Every act of hers was recorded, observed, remembered. Her phone calls, her letters, her attempts to sway others, I catalogued everything. I was building evidence without her knowing. One evening, she attempted to block my access to a savings account my father had set aside for me. She argued, she pleaded, she manipulated my father, and for a moment, I saw him hesitate. That hesitation was enough. I intercepted the forms she submitted. I made copies, hid backups, and left originals untouched. She would believe she had succeeded, but I had secured my advantage. She tried subtle intimidation too. A harsh word here, a cold glance there. She hinted that my father might reconsider his decisions if I continued to resist. I smiled silently. Resistance was not my plan. Observation was. Patience was. Every threat she made, every lie she told, fed my strategy. Maggie also tried to control my social life. She called my friends, asking questions, spreading doubts. She wanted to make me appear weak, dependent, and untrustworthy. I anticipated her moves. I spoke calmly to friends, giving no fuel for gossip, but I also recorded her calls. Each one was evidence of her manipulation. Her control extended to my father's schedule. She adjusted his meetings, his appointments, even his meals, so he would be tired, distracted, and easier to influence. I noted every adjustment, every pattern. The more she tried to tighten her grip, the more mistakes she made. And mistakes were all I needed. I also started testing boundaries. I asked questions about my accounts, subtly probing her responses. I left small traps, slight inconsistencies in my statements to see if she would react. She always reacted. Each reaction revealed more about her plans, more about her weaknesses. At night, I imagined the moment I would confront her. I did not rush. I visualized it over and over, refining my words, timing, and actions. My revenge would not be sudden. It would be precise, clean, and undeniable. She would not see it coming. The tension grew. Maggie thought she controlled the house. She believed she had eliminated every obstacle. She was confident. She laughed at my quietness. She mocked my patience. She thought waiting was weakness. It was not weakness. It was preparation. Every smile she wore, every false apology, every manipulation was recorded in my memory. Every small victory of hers was catalogued. I was turning her power into my own. Then came a small but critical opportunity. She left the safe in her room unlocked for an hour while making an urgent call. I noted it immediately. I took photographs of the documents inside. I memorized their contents. Every number, every signature, every detail. She believed I was unaware. She was wrong. I also began leaving subtle hints for my father. Nothing direct. Just questions that reminded him of fairness, responsibility, and trust. He would often hesitate when she tried to sway him. Her lies did not always land perfectly. Her arrogance was failing her in small ways I could exploit. Maggie began to grow impatient. Her actions became rushed. She demanded faster decisions, more attention, and immediate compliance. That impatience revealed cracks. Small inconsistencies in her stories emerged. I noted them. I recorded them. They would matter later. Her ultimate goal was clear. She wanted my father's wealth, the house, the inheritance. She wanted control. I wanted to ensure she failed. But I also needed proof. Without proof, I could not strike. I began leaving subtle trails of her missteps, documents, and recordings where she could never find them but where they would be undeniable later. I was patient. I was quiet. I was invisible. Maggie believed she was winning every day. Each manipulation, each subtle act of cruelty, strengthened my resolve. Each act reminded me why I could not let her succeed. She wanted to erase me from the family. I planned to erase her control instead. And so I waited. I watched. I recorded. I memorized. Every day brought her closer to overconfidence. Every day brought me closer to the moment when I could turn her own moves against her. The house felt tense. Every interaction was a game of control. Every word mattered. She thought she had the advantage. She thought patience was on her side. She was wrong. I knew her next move would be bigger. Her next lie would be bolder. And when it came, I would be ready. I was ready to act. I just had to wait for the perfect moment. Maggie's influence grew stronger every day. She controlled my father's attention, the house, and even our guests. Every word I said could be twisted. Every move I made could be misrepresented. She wanted me to feel small, unworthy, and trapped. I did not react. I remained calm. I let her think she had me under control. Every cruel glance, every whispered lie, every attempt to isolate me became fuel for my plan. I memorized everything. I recorded everything. She tried to manipulate my father more aggressively. She suggested he sell parts of the property and shift investments in ways that would leave me with nothing. She wanted me gone, my influence erased. I knew then that subtle observation was not enough. I needed small actions, careful tests, small counters that would reveal her weakness. I began planting small traps. I asked questions that seemed casual but were precise. I left documents in places where she would notice but not suspect me. Each reaction she made gave me more information about her intentions. Her arrogance blinded her to my presence. One morning, she tried to take control of my father's schedule completely. She shifted his meetings, changed his appointments, and demanded his attention for minor tasks. I noticed patterns I could exploit. I tracked each change. I memorized the reasons she gave. I recorded her explanations. Every lie and excuse was noted. Maggie also targeted my friendships. She called my friends, asked about me, suggested I was dishonest or manipulative. I spoke calmly, left no room for gossip, and recorded her calls. She was careless. She repeated herself. Each slip added to the evidence I was collecting. Her next attempt was financial. She tried to reroute money meant for my college, claiming it was to teach responsibility. I intercepted her changes, duplicated the forms, and made backups. She thought I was unaware. She was wrong. I also noticed her personal habits. How she typed letters, how she signed documents, how she left small clues when she thought no one was watching. Everything had a pattern. Everything could be used later. Maggie's impatience grew. She wanted immediate compliance. She demanded results quickly. That impatience caused mistakes. I noted every one. She did not notice my calm, but every moment of overconfidence, every rushed decision, was a tool I could use. I continued leaving subtle reminders for my father. Casual questions. Gentle hints. Words that encouraged fairness and responsibility. Slowly, he began to hesitate when Maggie tried to influence him. Her lies did not always land perfectly. Her control had cracks. I observed each one. At night, I reviewed everything. Notes, recordings, patterns. I visualized how to use her own methods against her. Every manipulation, every whisper, every lie became part of the strategy one was building. I was patient. I was precise. I was invisible. Maggie believed she controlled every corner of the house. She believed she had eliminated every obstacle. She laughed at my quietness. She mocked my patience. She thought waiting was weakness. She was wrong. I began small experiments. I tested which lies would stick with my father. I tested how far she could push before she revealed contradictions. I tested her reactions to questions about property, money, and decisions. Every reaction revealed weaknesses, gaps, and evidence. She grew careless. Her need to control everything made her predictable. Each predictable move became a map I could follow. Every misstep became a piece of my plan. The tension in the house increased. Every interaction mattered. Every conversation was a game of power. Maggie thought she was winning. She believed patience and control were on her side. She was wrong. I was building my advantage quietly, meticulously, and invisibly. I knew her next move would be bigger. She would take a greater risk. She would overreach. And when she did, I would be ready. I would strike not with anger, but with proof, with timing, and with precision. I had patience. I had strategy. I had everything she did not know I had. I was ready to turn every manipulation, every lie, every act of control, against her. Maggie thought she could erase me from my father's life. She was wrong. I was already invisible, already preparing, already ready. The moment would come. And when it did, her arrogance would be her downfall. Maggie's control became bolder. She began taking full charge of my father's finances. Every investment, every transaction, every document went through her. She spoke to him in calculated tones, carefully shaping his decisions. She wanted total authority. She wanted me removed from every aspect of our lives. I stayed silent. I watched. I recorded. Every move she made, every lie she spoke, became part of a growing collection. I knew patience was my greatest advantage. Her confidence blinded her to the fact that I was learning, memorizing, and preparing. She tried to isolate me further. Friends, family, even colleagues she spoke to, all became targets for her subtle manipulation. She painted me as difficult, ungrateful, and stubborn. She wanted the narrative to be hers alone. I left no reaction, only observation. Every word she spoke against me, every attempt to control perception, became evidence. Then she overreached. She demanded control over every property decision. She convinced my father to consider selling assets without consulting me. She presented the moves as care and foresight. My father, tired and distracted, was nearly persuaded. I saw an opening. I subtly questioned her suggestions. I asked calm, precise questions that revealed inconsistencies. I did not attack. I did not argue. I only highlighted discrepancies, quietly, without revealing my knowledge of her intentions. Her reactions were immediate. Every flinch, every pause, every rushed explanation became a clue. I began mapping her patterns more rigorously. Which lies she repeated? Which excuses she used? Which moments made her careless? I documented everything in meticulous detail. Every false claim, every manipulated document, every attempt to isolate me, was recorded. Maggie believed she was untouchable. She was wrong. Small victories began to appear. My father hesitated more often. He began asking questions. The cracks in Maggie's carefully constructed facade widened. She grew impatient, frustrated by my silence, unaware that silence was my weapon. She started leaving evidence of her manipulations in plain sight, thinking I would not notice. I noticed. I saved it. Every document, every email, every casual comment was stored and memorized. I began constructing a chain of proof, a map of her deceit that could not be ignored. Her arrogance intensified. She openly belittled me once, expecting no retaliation. I smiled silently. I had memorized her actions, the timing, the words she used. I had everything I needed to act when the moment came. I began small countermeasures. Adjusting my own interactions to trap her mistakes. Testing her reactions. Leaving subtle hints that contradicted her narrative. Every reaction she gave, every correction, every lie she tried to cover became ammunition for the plan I was quietly building. Maggie thought control came from aggression. She believed dominance was power. She did not understand the strength of patience, observation, and preparation. She did not know that every act of her overconfidence was being logged, remembered, and analyzed. I had no intention of rushing. A single mistake could ruin everything. I needed her to fully reveal her methods, her greed, her manipulations. I needed her to push too far. Each day brought me closer to that moment. She tried to force my father into decisions that would leave me powerless. I gently questioned him in private, guiding him subtly without revealing my knowledge of her manipulations. His hesitation grew. The first seeds of doubt were planted. The tension between Maggie and me became almost tangible. Every word, every glance, every small movement was a test. She did not see that I was testing her just as carefully. She thought she was the predator. She did not know I was the strategist, waiting for the perfect moment. I started thinking several steps ahead. Every possible reaction she could have, every countermeasure she might try, was anticipated. I prepared contingencies. I had proof, I had memory, and I had patience. She had nothing that I could not exploit. Her arrogance was her weakness. She overstepped more and more. She spoke to friends, neighbors, and family, boasting subtly about her control, mocking me indirectly. I recorded each conversation. I captured each email. I saved every financial discrepancy. She believed she was untouchable. I was invisible. I observed everything. I waited. Each day she tightened her grip, each day she tried to erase me, each day she revealed her methods, was a step closer to my plan. I was ready. I had patience, strategy, and evidence. I only needed the moment when her own mistakes would expose her fully. And when that moment came, it would be precise, undeniable, and complete. Maggie thought she was winning. She believed her power was absolute. She underestimated me. I would not wait forever. Her next move would be her last mistake. And I would be ready to turn every manipulation, every lie, every act of control against her. The plan was clear. The opportunity would present itself. I only had to wait for her to push too far. Then everything she had built on deceit would crumble. And I would be the one standing, silent, prepared, and unstoppable. Maggie's arrogance had reached its peak. She believed she controlled everything. The house, the finances, my father's trust. She had no idea how close I was to acting. The moment came quietly. She left the safe unlocked again while rushing out for a call. I photographed the documents inside. Every manipulation, every forged signature, every hidden note became evidence. I had memorized them. I had backed them up. Every detail was ready. I approached my father calmly. No anger, no tears, only facts. I presented what I had collected. Dates, recordings, photos, documents. I spoke clearly, precisely. Each piece fit perfectly. There was no room to deny. Maggie returned, expecting compliance. She found neither fear nor submission. She tried her charm, her lies, her manipulation. She thought she could bluff her way out. She was wrong. I revealed everything. Each lie, each manipulation, each attempt to isolate me. My father listened, shocked. He had seen hints before, but now the full truth was undeniable. Every false claim she had made, every plan she had executed, was exposed. Maggie's face fell. She had no words. No excuse. No escape. Her arrogance had become her trap. She had built her empire on deception, and I had dismantled it silently, carefully, without emotion, without mistakes. My father finally understood. He saw the full extent of her manipulation. He saw the calm precision with which I had collected evidence. He realized he had been blind, and it was my patience, intelligence, and strategy that had revealed the truth. Maggie tried to argue, tried to manipulate, tried to twist the story. Every attempt failed. I had anticipated every word, every reaction, every tactic. She had no control left. In the end, she left. Not violently, but decisively. The power she had sought, the control she had built, crumbled quietly. My father reclaimed his awareness, and I reclaimed my life. I was no longer the quiet, underestimated child. I was the strategist, the one who had waited, observed, and acted at the perfect moment. The house was calm again. My father and I were alone, together. But I knew something had changed forever. Maggie had underestimated me. And that mistake had cost her everything. I had learned a lesson stronger than grief or anger: patience, observation, and strategy can turn silence into power. I had waited. I had watched. I had acted. And in the quiet aftermath, I realized one thing clearly: no one can erase you if you refuse to be erased. The battle was over. The victory was mine. But the memory of her arrogance, her manipulation, and her overconfidence would remain as a reminder. I was no longer a child. I was unstoppable. If you loved this story of patience, strategy, and revenge, don't forget to subscribe to Revenge State and hit the bell icon. Share this video with friends who love drama, betrayal, and smart revenge. Comment below what you would have done in her place. Stay tuned for more shocking stories every week.